some ridiculous things that did happen on Raw, but they're not getting downs. They're going to get ludicrous sounds, just for a bit of fun. And when it comes to this week's retro ups and downs, I've decided that we're also going to do Elimination Chamber 2014. That's when we had the Wyatt family taking on The Shield. It is an absolutely brilliant match and just something that if you've never seen, you should go out of your way to see. So hopefully this gives you the impetus to do so. But before that, my name's Simon Miller. Welcome to WhatCulture Wrestling. And let's indeed up those sounds. Does not work at all, even less than usual, for Monday Night Raw. And so yes, the sheer amount of tributes on this week's episode of Raw to Jon Huber, aka Brody Lee, aka Luke Harper, was just absolutely humbling and absolutely crazy. I mean, not only did we have the opening graphic, which WWE always does, but the first thing that Tom Phillips said was, "It's Monday, you know what that means," which of course was a reference to his Twitter account. And then Drew McIntyre came out with microphone in hand, said the same thing, also went, yeah, which is something else he also used to do. There were so many throughout the night as well. I'll try and pick up on a few, but I'm sure I will miss a bunch, because that's just the way of these things. But it naturally gets it up. Back to business, and of course Drew McIntyre was annoyed because last week Sheamus had gone Sheamus. Now, given how long these two have known each other, you should know that if you put the Irishman in a ring, who's going to run around and he's going to be all mad? Even I know that, and I've never met Sheamus, but I've seen him do it for over a decade or so. So, of course, he bro-kicked Keith Lee last week, and Drew still couldn't believe it. And I was sat there going, well, I believe it. It's like putting a lion and a human together. The lion is going to eat the human. You can't then go, oh, I don't want to happen, I don't believe it. If you do, you're an idiot. There is more to this though, because next week on Raw, we're going to have Legends Night, but we're also going to get a WWE title match as WWE goes all out to get that precious rating. Because later on, we're going to get Sheamus taking on Keith Lee, and whoever is victorious will indeed face Drew McIntyre in around about 7 days' time. And because Drew McIntyre said Sheamus' name, poof, out he appeared. And McIntyre even said that. He even made reference to the fact this happens all the time. I was like, Drew, come live in my world. I'm seeing it every week. Sheamus then came out to defend himself and basically said everything that I just said a few seconds ago, and was like, I also didn't break any promises. I bro-kicked Keith Lee after the match. I don't see what the problem is here. Both guys then got excited that maybe on next week's Raw they'll be able to have a fight which they've wanted ever since they were kids. And of course, Keith Lee didn't like that. It was as if he was being treated as the third man. So he came out to Raw as well. Thing is, I really liked Leaf here. One, he has now decided he doesn't trust either of these guys, and nor should he. But also two, he came across like an absolute badass, ready to crush some skulls. He went on to say that he knows that Sheamus eventually is going to betray Drew McIntyre. And at that point, the WWE champion was so fed up. He was like a sick and tired dad. He was like, look, kids, I can't handle it anymore. I know you were meant to have it later. Let's just get a referee out here and have the #1 contender match right here, right now. So yes, an official did come out, but you already know what Sheamus did. He didn't just bro-kick Keith Lee once, he bro-kicked him twice, and you were like, oh man, it's all about to go bad again for Keith Lee. But thankfully it didn't. Now personally, I would have kickstarted Raw off with this match and allowed the commentators to fill you in on all the little bits and pieces. It would have made the show feel different, but I don't care, because the opening was still good, and as for this match, well, it was good too. Up. McIntyre was on commentary the whole time, and surely this was Vince McMahon giving himself a late Christmas present, because it was just man meat taking on man meat as two slabs of man came together and just pounded the shit out of each other. And now that I've said that out loud, that is not what I meant at all. Of course, because Keith Lee is the bigger piece of man meat, he was just throwing Sheamus around the place, including out of the ring, and at one point he went for a tackle off the top rope and Keith Lee just ruined him. Ha ha, it made me feel good. The best part was the end, however, because Sheamus hit Keith Lee with a headbutt which Keith sold as if a stack of papers had just been thrown into his face, and then he just grabbed him, he gave it the spirit bomb, and he pinned him for the 1, 2, 3. There was no nonsense, there was no gaga, there was no shenanigans. Keith Lee has just defeated Sheamus, and if you can believe it, is now the #1 contender for the WWE title and is getting that shot next week. Drew and Keith then stared down afterwards, and yeah, I know there's no way that Keith Lee is actually going to become the WWE champion, but just allow him to have a really good match, I will take it. Jackson Riker was then backstage listening to Elias, the Loon Doon Doon, play his guitar. I'm not going to lie, that was really, really weird. There was also somebody knocking on the door, but Elias said, no man, just ignore it and listen to the music. And I was like, man, I don't know what's going on. Someone was then pulling random names out of hats again because it was The Miz versus grandmother Metalik. Maybe he wasn't able to see her over Christmas, so he thought he'd try and catch up on some family time now. But the justification for this is because the Lucha House Party had gone, ha ha ha, we think it's really funny that The Miz is no longer Mr. Money in the Bank. And therefore, you have to have a match. Also, forget the fact that the Lucha House Party are 100% right, and it is dumb that he's still moaning about it. So yeah, it gets a sound. That's really kind of odd. Now, amazingly here too, The Miz lost, and I couldn't quite believe it. I mean, around about an hour and a half when I was watching Raw, I was going to find out why, but Grand Metalik did use the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment. This time it was a surprise, like sunset flip, and he got the 1, 2, 3, and the story is, The Miz is so devastated, The Miz is so sad that he's no longer Mr. Money in the Bank, he can't even get his mojo going. So I was stunned. I was actually stunned. I don't mean the move, I wasn't lying on the floor like, oh, my neck. But again, give me a few minutes, and I shall show you where the justification lies. We were then back to Elias serenading Jackson Riker with his music, and I can only suppose that Elias was doing this because he's really proud of all the work that Riker did on the Starship Enterprise. But then there was this knocking again, and this time these two couldn't handle it, so they opened the door, and guess who was there? That's right, it was AJ Styles and his big friend, Omos. Now they were super annoyed by all of this because they were trying to listen to classical music in their dressing room while AJ Styles was on the phone trying to get management to give him another WWE title shot. I was a bit like, AJ, that sounds far more annoying than whatever Elias is doing. You can't make a phone call while orchestral stuff's playing in the background. It's just gonna be super distracting. Anyway, Elias said that AJ's only mad because he's old and therefore is running out of opportunities, and Styles said to Elias, you're not Johnny Cash, you're Johnny Trash. I just went sheesh, and also it's getting a sound. How's it go? Shayna Baszler then ruined Dana Brooke. And I was like, give me more of this. Up. And I don't want to be that guy, but I just hope that we're done with the Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler tag team, although I do not think we are. But yeah, Dana Brooke got a little bit of offense here, but otherwise, Shayna basically beat her twice. Because outside of the ring, she wrecked her so bad with the Kira Fuda clutch, she would have got counted out if it wasn't for Shayna, who grabbed her and chucked her back in there. And when they were back in, she just applied it again. Dana Brooke tapped out. The Queen of Stage is back to being a badass. Mandy Rose was tending to her friend afterwards, and Shayna didn't like that either. So she returned, and she put her in the Kira Fuda clutch too. Now, is this so hard? Why can't we just do this each and every week? Baszler comes across as so legit anyway, you just gotta throw more of it into my face. Raw then took a page out of Sheamus' book, and it went all Raw. Let's go. Because the moment of bliss is now basically morphed into Alexa's playground, which is her sitting in the ring, surrounded by slides and swings and other things that you would associate with a playground, and of course that's perfectly normal, and there ain't nothing to see here. She also hinted that this set had been built by Bray Wyatt, so I can only assume he did this while he was on fire, or when he was just like a burnt body. I mean, I don't think we should think about it anymore. Alexa then called out Randy Orton, who didn't show, so all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And I was genuinely terrified that we may cut to the back and Randy Orton would just be on fire because WWE is obsessed with it. But no, he had somehow entered the Firefly Funhouse, which is also bonkers because I thought at one point that was just meant to exist in Bray Wyatt's head, but now people just turn up and they have a good time. Do you know what happened then? Randy Orton, I hear voices in my head, proceeded to not only destroy the Firefly Funhouse, but he also started to rip off the heads of some of the puppets. And what a dark and depressing episode of Sesame Street this was. Bliss was freaking out in the ring and begging him to stop, and the only way she was able to do that is when she went, Randy, I challenge you to get in the ring with me later tonight. And this was like the best thing that Randy had ever heard, because he accepted. And I was like, what does that even mean? You're gonna challenge him to get in the ring? So he just gets in the squared circle, ding, 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 and you're the winner. It was so weird. However, here is the thing. When Randy Orton was doing all of this, I was laughing my ass off. It was just one of the most absurd things I'd ever seen, like this proper sociopath crazy person just destroying puppets. For that very reason alone, again, sometimes I just want to have fun, like Cyndi Lauper is getting it up. I mean, a stupid up, but an up all the same. We did then get rewarded for actually being long-term viewers, and that's a nice pat on the back, Barry Horowitz, because it rarely ever happens. But we had a shot of Charlotte Flair being injured by Nia Jax months ago, which explained why they were going to have a match in a few minutes. The Queen was also being interviewed and letting us know how dangerous Nia Jax was, but she doesn't care about that because she's going to beat her, and as always, she's going to climb her way back to the top. Oscar then popped into the frame and said, Nia Jax is not ready for Charlotte, and these two are meant to be friends, and I don't believe it at all. I give it 2 weeks tops before Charlotte screws her over. It was then AJ Styles versus Elias, and all of it was just a little bit strange. They got a good 15 minutes, so they got a good chunk of time, and it was actually all right. Although at one point, Rico just fell on the floor because he couldn't believe how tall Omos was. But yeah, like I say, it was decent. I don't have anything bad to say. I don't know why it existed, but up. It also wasn't designed to do anything with the Qatar man because at the end, he just got phenomenal forearmed right in the face and pinned for the 1, 2, 3. So at least that was the right finish, although if you are an Elias fan, you must be devastated now because his losing streak is getting quite big. I hope it doesn't turn into a feud, because again, it should be a one and done. Perplexing, but fine. Next up was everything between Ricochet and Retribution, and if you think this feud is just going round and round and round again, well, you ain't wrong. However, here it was Rick versus Mustafa Ali, and if I was WWE, I would have shouted that from the rooftop, because I think that's a great match, and these two are just so talented, they absolutely smashed it. And really, WWE needs to do more matches like this. I was invested from the word go. Up. The problem is everything else. Like, Retribution kept getting involved here and the referee didn't care at all, and when all was said and done, Ricochet just lost. So what was the point of any of this? He has now been defeated by, I think, every single member, other than Reckoning, but we'll probably do that next week. Ricochet also refused to join Retribution after this, after Mustafa Ali got on the mic and said, I demand an answer now, and then he hit the recall and he ran off. So genuinely, I want people to tell me in the comments below, in 7 days' time, what is the next step with this? Because we've come to the end and we've achieved nothing. So you know what we're gonna do? Play a sound. Oh, geez, my knees. That was too loud. So yes, it did get a sound, but I do want to say once again, these two are so good at professional wrestling, and so was the finish. Like, Ricochet went for the shooting star, but Mustafa Ali got his knees up, then he applied the Koji clutch. Just a good time. Interview with Nia Jax followed, and she is going to do 3 things. She's going to destroy Charlotte Flair, she's going to win back the tag team titles, and she's going to enter the Raw Rumble. And poor Shayna Baszler hadn't been told this, and she suffered some kind of breakdown on camera. Long story short, both of these people are now officially in the Rumble match. So there are your first 2 entrants for the Women's Rumble that's happening in around about 5 weeks' time. Drew McIntyre was then back with another interview. He reminded us that he is the best, and even though Keith Lee may be second best, unfortunately, when you're second best, it means you can't beat the best. Point is, next week, he will still be WWE Champion. And then, of course, we did what we always do. Remember all those rumors, Raw's gonna be all freshened up and changed? No, it's not, because it was Nia Jax versus Charlotte Flair, and it ended in a DQ. It's getting a sound. Just gets stranger and stranger now, doesn't it? But yes, no need to recap all of this because I'm not going to waste your time as WWE did with mine. But after a good 10 minutes or so, Charlotte Flair had the match won with the figure 8. So Shayna Baszler just got in the ring and she applied the Kira Fuda clutch. And this time the referee thought, I can't really let that one fly. So it was disqualification and Charlotte Flair technically wins, but really, we all lost. So why do we even do it? Because now we just have to do it again, and you know that Charlotte will get the proper victory soon. But I suppose it is Raw, and you know what that means. Just a wall of madness was next. The Hurt Business were once again bullying some guy backstage because they are a bunch of dicks. And then we cut to Angel Garza, who was doing his whole Rose routine and said maybe next week he will reveal this mysterious woman. Again, I am going to bet my hair that it's Eva Marie. He also went to give a rose to Charlie Caruso, who was going to interview him, but all the 24/7 geeks arrived, they crushed the flower, and Angel Garza still tried to give it to Charlie, who seemed very upset. You tell me. Jeff Hardy was then congratulating the New Day on Big E's Intercontinental title win on SmackDown, and I quite like that. It's like the New Day has been broken up, but they're always going to be joined together by love. Riddle then arrived because the New Day and Jeff Hardy and himself were going to join up, and he had a bunch of suggestions for team names, including one which was the Little Bronies. Now, I just want to give a shout out to Xavier Woods here, who sold this perfectly. It was like he was talking to his dad about sex. He was really uncomfortable. Riddle also thinks they should be called the Positivity Hardy Bros or something, and Xavier and Kofi were so done with this, they just backed off. But then Jeff Hardy, like he's Riddle's older brother, basically like rubbed his head and said, don't worry, man, I've got an idea. We can be the Rain Bros, which I actually thought was quite a good one. You're just like, Bless Riddle, that little scamp. It was all leading to the Hurt Business versus these four, but beforehand we were still throwing out more craziness because Bobby Lashley via MVP also told us that he's going to be in the Rumble. Surely somebody in management should be like, dude, can you just defend that US title first? But don't worry about that. Worry about the match is getting it up. I mean, it was just a constant back and forth with everybody giving a little something, but also everybody receiving a little something too. So Xavier Woods was in there, Kofi Kingston was in there, Cedric Alexander was in there, MVP was in there. At one point, MVP was laughing at Matt Riddle on the floor, and Xavier Woods hit a discus clothesline, which obviously was another tribute to Brody Lee. This was just entertainment personified. Ultimately, though, it did all come down to two guys left in the ring, which was Bobby Lashley and Jeff Hardy. And kind of interestingly, much like has happened over the last few weeks, Bobby Lashley got Jeff in the Hurt Lock, and Hardy just tapped out. I mean, he is having a bad run. I would suppose this was done because afterwards Riddle did get in there and he was able to beat up the Hurt Business. Like, oh my gosh, maybe we are actually going to do Bobby Lashley versus Riddle at some point. But you know, a better way to sort of push Riddle up the card would have been to have him have won this match. He could have pinned Shelton Benjamin. Nobody would have minded that. But hey, it's Raw and we just do what we do. And then, man, why did WWE have to do this on this show when we're trying to keep it so positive? Let's just be brief. Because The Miz was sad, Adam Pearce then approached him and just went, hey, you know what? We've been thinking about it and you were right. It was John Morrison that cashed in the Money in the Bank briefcase. It wasn't you. That's against the rules. So here you go. And he just gave it back to him. Remember that time years ago when Eric Bischoff just gave the world title to Triple H and you were so deflated like, what? That's all we did? This was the 2020 equivalent. And it really doesn't help anything, and it makes you a complete moron for investing in the fact that maybe he did do this at TLC. So of course, you know what we have to do, and again, I kind of regret it, but you know, gotta be transparent, you gotta be honest. It doesn't just get a sound, it gets a brown sound. There it is. I mean, what else was I gonna do? After the fact too, Morrison and The Miz basically did sex dancing. They were thrusting around the place. I have no idea how this story is going to end, but I do not like it. And then, well, just give me a sec. I'm going to break the framing here. You'll have to forgive me. And I had some tech issues today, so everything's weird. Anyway, I just need to go watch the end of Raw. I've made a mistake. Just one second. Nope. I was right. What the flub? I mean, it's one of those occasions where I don't even know what to tell you, so I would just try and go through it point by point. Randy Orton was in the ring. Alexa Bliss was also in the ring. Alexa Bliss then said to Randy Orton, hey, look, I've got a bunch of gasoline. I'm going to pour it over my head. Now, please, will you set me on fire, much like you did with Bray Wyatt? Randy Orton then said he would not do this because while he loves burning people alive, he also enjoys people suffering. And now that he knows Alexa Bliss wants this, he's going to refuse to do it. Then the lights went out as if the Fiend was going to appear. And in the darkness, Randy Orton did light a match, and Raw went off air with the insinuation that he had just set fire to Alexa Bliss. Once again, I was absolutely laughing because the commentators were like, Randy, no, please don't do it, and yet just sat mere feet away from this without getting off their asses trying to help. And I really don't understand. I mean, I get it, because obviously he set fire, but I have no words. I mean, that got dark, didn't it? And did he do it? And did he not do it? And if he did do it, are the police finally going to turn up on Raw and say, I'm really sorry, Mr. Orton, we have to arrest you? This is one of those things where I need to see what's going to happen in 7 days' time, or I need to keep my eye on WWE social media to get an idea, so I can't give it an up or a down. What would I even be upping or downing? I tell you too, there was a rumor that WWE wanted some more dark, edgy content. I thought it was baloney. Maybe it's flipping true. Which does bring us to the end of yet another Raw, and actually some of the good bits were actually really good, and some of the sounds, well, at least they were entertaining. So I'm sure you've picked up on the theme of this show. We're gonna give it an up. And again, just really double down on this, all thoughts and whatever else you can possibly do emotion-wise out to Brody Lee's friends and family and everything else. I still can't get my head around it. It goes to show how crazy life can be. Now, please do leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about last night's episode of Raw. Like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Head over to WhatCulture.com, read yourself some articles, follow WhatCulture on Twitter, WhatCulture WWE. Watch more videos here on WhatCulture Wrestling. My name is Simon from WhatCulture. Thank you for joining me as always, and also thank you very much for always joining me as always. If you didn't watch, well, I'd just be talking to nobody, and that would suck. I think it's good to remember these things. I'll see you on the next one.